Station, this is Houston. Are you ready for your event?
Houston Station, we are ready for the event.
Houston ACR, this is Mission Control Houston. Please call station for a voice check.
Station, this is Houston ACR. How do you hear me?
We've got you loud and clear. How else?
We've got you loud and clear as well. Please stand by for opening remarks.
Hi, my name is Indiana Soto, and I have the privilege of being a school principal within the largest urban school district in the nation at the historic PS 71 Forest Elementary in Ridgewood, Queens, where we view the complexities of teaching and learning as an opportunity to nurture the hidden potential for all learners. And this is why we are so grateful to NASA and the astronauts for creating and giving us access to meaningful learning opportunities that are focused on excellence and abundance. And here is our first thought-provoking question.
Hi, my name is Nada, and I'm in 4th grade. My question is, what is the most challenging part of living on the International Space Station for a long time?
Hey, good afternoon, and welcome to the International Space Station. I think one of the most challenging parts is just the fact that we can't go outside and get some sun and, feel the wind on our face or the rain or the smells of outside. Everything on the International Space Station is very clean. And so there's just a few things that I miss about being on Earth.
Hi, my name is Landon, and I'm in 5th grade. My question is, can you describe what type of labs exist in the International Space Station, and what are they currently studying?
Yeah, Landon, if you think about the International Space Station like a giant Lego construction, and we can pull off Lego pieces and put different Lego pieces in order to change all the types of experiments that we do up here. So Space Station itself has a lot of different labs. So for instance, we have the Life Sciences glove box, which is right here to my left, where we can put our hands into like a secured environment and do a lot of biology, life sciences research. We also have a microgravity glove box, the microgravity science glove box, where we do more looking at fluids and combustion research type of things. Right now we have a cool experiment going on there looking at protein crystals and how they break and shear in microgravity. And protein crystals are a really important piece that are used for research into diseases like Parkinson's and cancer. So that's a really interesting experiment. We also have an area that we can do combustion research. And you would never know looking at Space Station, but they're inside of some racks. We're actually lighting things on fire to see how fire propagates. That helps us picking better materials for future spacecraft and also putting out fires if there ever was one. So an absolute ton of science going on all the time up here. But just think about it like a big Lego box. We can always plug in a different type of experiment.
Hi, I'm Jaden, and I'm from 4th grade, and this is my question. What do you think will be the most exciting part about going back to the moon with the Artemis mission?
Yeah, Jaden, I like the way you think. It really is exciting going back to the moon and eventually onto Mars. I think the most exciting thing will be everything that we learn on the moon. There's so much that happened on the moon, billions of years ago, and it hasn't been touched by atmosphere, wind, rain, all of that stuff. So it's been preserved really well. We can learn so much about the Earth, about moon, and about the rest of the universe just by looking at what's left and what's been there on the moon.
Hi, my name is Jaden. I'm in 3rd grade, and my question is, how do you sleep in zero gravity? And how do you hold your body to the bed?
I love this question about sleeping because it's one of the first things that we have to get used to on Space Station. So first of all, when you lay down in your bed at night, think about where all your arms and your legs go. They kind of just flop back onto the bed, right? Well, if Vapor demonstrates for me, and she just lets go of her whole body, look how her arms come up like a mummy. So, or a zombie maybe. So we kind of sleep like zombies. So if we put a little bungee around our waist and put ourselves onto a wall in our crew quarters, we do have a sleeping bag for warmth that keeps kind of the warm air in there. But when your whole body relaxes, you kind of just go into that zombie.
Hi, I'm Patrick, and I'm a third grader. And my question is, how do your senses like taste and smell change in space?
Hey, Patrick. Yeah, so senses do change a little bit, especially sense of smell and taste. You know, those are related. And when we get up here without gravity, some of the fluid in our body actually shifts upward. So our organs move, they move up and they shift around. And then a lot of the fluid actually shifts up into our head. So we've got more sinus congestion, which just affects your ability to smell and then taste. So taste is just a little bit dulled, but nothing too crazy.
Hi, I'm Verena, and I'm from PS71 Forest Elementary in third grade. And I have a question for the astronauts. How can you grow plants in space without gravity? And how can the plant reproduce without pollination in space?
Yeah, plant growth is really important, especially if we're going to be up in space for a really long time, like if we're going to go to Mars and it's going to take us 9 months to get there. We want to be able to produce plants not only for food, but also for cleaner and more natural air. So your second question was about pollination. We've actually been able to use our glove boxes and gloved hands and tools to artificially pollinate some different types of plants. It's one of the things that we've studied up here. And to your other questions of how the plant grows, this is a great question, because if you look on the ground, usually trees and plants grow up, unless you're growing tomatoes, I know those grow down, but things grow up and then roots go down. And gravity and light are two of the cues that plants use to know which direction to grow. So up here we create artificial light. Plants need light, they also need air, and they need soil in order to grow. So we have to create those same types of things in order for plants to grow. Much like we kind of create an artificial environment for ourselves. The human beings can't survive in space, but we can survive inside the space station in space because we've created this little environment. In that same way, we create a little environment for the plants so that they have all of the things that they need. And one of the things that we've studied is, do they need anything extra because they don't have those cues? Is artificial light good enough? So those are all questions that we're answering.
Hello, my name is Benjamin, and I'm from 5th grade. My question is, how is it possible for our school to communicate with you while you're in space? What kind of technology makes that possible? And how do the signals travel between Earth and the International Space Station?
Hey, Benjamin. So we can communicate with you just like this in public affairs events, but also we use satellites to kind of get your standard internet connection, if you could think of that. So we can communicate with our friends and families via the internet. We have the ability to call them on the phone as well. So just like, if you can imagine just picking up a cell phone and answering from the International Space Station. You can't call us, but we can call you. And then also we have radios. We have multiple different types of radios. We use the satellites for those. We have the ham radio, or an amateur radio, that we can talk to the ground with, and often we talk to schools on the ham radio. It's a lot of fun. As we pass over the school, we can get contact with them. So there are plenty of different ways that we communicate with Earth from up here on the International Space Station.
Hi, my name is Lindy and I'm a 4th grader. My question is, what does NASA study for climate change, and how do you solve space pollution?
Yeah, the International Space Station is an amazing platform to observe our Earth. Sometimes when we explore, really our goal is to understand where we came from better, and this is no exception. We go around over 90% of the Earth's surface every day. We orbit the Earth 16 times a day. And so we have a lot of instruments on the outside that are constantly mapping and monitoring Earth. One of those is called EcoTress. And that it actually checks how hot the surface temperatures are across the globe. That's one way we can monitor it. We have another instrument called the JEDI. This is kind of uses a laser system to understand forest growth and depth of forests and coverage. We have one that called EMIT that measures dust on Earth. And one of the interesting things that we've noticed here, you can actually see dust coming off of a desert and going an entire continent away. So that's really interesting. It's really important for us to monitor those changes so that we can understand kind of what to expect. So our foresters and our farmers have better data so they can make decisions about their crops and their forests. So some really fascinating instruments. Now, your second question was about kind of debris and space junk. And this is one of those things that as we explore deeper into space, we have to also do so very responsibly, because we have to understand that future generations, like you guys, are also going to want to explore space. So one of the most important things we can do is to not create space junk. We don't want to blow up satellites. We don't want to leave satellites dead in orbit, because those can create hazards to future exploration. Now, for things that are there is a lot of debris out in space. We are looking at ways that we can robotically capture them. Right here next to me is called Astrobee, and we just tested a system called Reach that we put on Astrobee, and it can actually fly up and grab objects. And imagine if we could do that actually out in orbit, then maybe we could clean up some of that pollution.
Hi, my name is Clara. I'm in 5th grade, and my question for NASA is, what expectations do you have for future space exploration?
Oh man, Clara, I like the curiosity that you bring with this question. I think that the sky's the limit. I think we're limited by our human ingenuity and our creativity on space exploration. So, we're trying to get back to the moon. We're trying to get to Mars. But, I think we could go as far as we want and as far as our technology will take us. And so I'm really excited about the future of space exploration.
Hi, my name is Aiden from kindergarten. And do you know how astronauts fix the internet from the space?
Yeah, Aiden, so we can fix our own internet almost just like you would at school or at home. We reset our routers, we unplug and plug things back in, we call tech support down there in Mission Control, and they help us out. Now, we don't have any direct impact on your internet. That comes from different satellites that we don't control from the International Space Station, but really we fix it much like we do at home.
Hi, my name is Eloise, and I am from 3rd grade. And my question is, how do experiments from the International Space Station help people on Earth?
I love this question. We do a ton of science up here. At any given time on the International Space Station, there are over 200 experiments going on, both inside and outside. We volunteer our own bodies for science as well. So we're doing science experiments, collecting blood and looking at different parts of our body with ultrasound or other instruments to see how humans develop in space and how we adapt in microgravity. And all of those experiments have led to advancements in treatments for cancer, as an example. Anne mentioned all the plants that we grow up here. We also provide that information, and farmers on Earth get to benefit from all of the information that we figure out up here in microgravity. We get to learn how all of those little tiny small processes work without the force of gravity, and that helps us learn more about what we do on Earth.
Hi, my name is Steven, and I'm a 4th grader, and my question is, how does the International Space Station stay in orbit?
Stephen, we stay in orbit basically because we don't have very much gravity, so we're not getting pulled very hard down to Earth. But here's what I want you to picture. You're holding a baseball, and you throw a baseball as hard as you can, right? At some point, it's going to arc down, and it's going to hit the Earth, right? So now let's take a baseball, and let's, give it to the strongest person you know and have them throw the baseball as hard as they can. It's going to go even further, but then eventually it's going to arc and it's going to hit the Earth. And if you launch it out of a machine, like out of a pitching machine, the ball's going to go even further, but then eventually it's going to hit the Earth. It's going to curve down, right? Well, we are like a baseball that got thrown so hard that when we start curving down, we're actually curving with the curvature of the Earth. So in a way, we're kind of in a gravity free fall around the Earth. And we do very slowly come back toward the Earth's atmosphere, and we have thrusters, and about once a month, we reboost our station back up into our orbit. But we're basically in free fall.
Hi, my name is Sebastian. I am a 3rd grader, and I would like to ask NASA's astronauts, what is the most surprising or unexpected thing you have experienced in space? Thank you.
You know, I think one of the most surprising or unexpected things is just how quickly your brain figures out what up and down doesn't really matter. You know, on Earth, we've got gravity and it pulls us down, and so we know where the floor is. But here on the space station, somebody could be upside down and you could be talking to them like normal. They could be hanging from the ceiling like a bat, and this is completely normal. You know, our treadmill is on the wall. So is our lifting machine, and so it's pretty often that you turn around the corner and someone is not exactly like you would expect them to be. But your brain, after a couple weeks, just kind of goes, okay, we can do this, and you kind of figure out that you can go through a module upside down, you can go through a module doing multiple aileron rolls, and your body's totally okay with that.
Hi, my name is Mary Angel, and I'm in 3rd grade. My question is, does smell travel in space outside the International Space Station? How could you test that with an experiment? Thank you.
So let's talk smells in space. So first, what are smells on Earth? Smells on Earth are actually just little tiny particles of whatever that thing is. So let's say, think about your favorite food and how good it smells. Actually, what you're smelling is like little tiny particles of that food. And on Earth, smells goes away because those little molecules are actually heavier than other molecules in air, so they'll eventually kind of settle down and they'll mix in with the air. Okay, let's come up here. We have no gravity. We have nothing that's pulling those different molecules in different directions. And so if we didn't have any airflow at all, those molecules would just sit in one place and it would just smell like that forever, right? And it's interesting because right here where we are, we can both actually feel a little bit of a breeze. The air is constantly moving in space station. And so smells dissipate actually as the air moves. So if we open up, let's say, a food that doesn't smell very good, we could open it up next to an air intake and then the smell would all go away. But if we shut off all the air, it would kind of linger. Now, outside the space station, in the vacuum of space, is there smells? I don't know. We don't really put our noses out there directly. There are different things that leave particles out there, like remnants of dust from different objects. And maybe that would create a smell. The only way to really test that would be to grab like a sample of it, maybe a swab or a sample of it, big enough that your body could sense it.
Hi, my name is Gabriella. I am a 4th grader, and my question is, what is your favorite part about being an astronaut?
Oh man, so many awesome parts about being an astronaut. You know, we get to float all day, we get to fly, but I think my favorite part is actually the small part that we play in all of the science that happens up here. You know, it's an honor and it's a privilege to execute the science that goes on the International Space Station. There are scientists on Earth who have worked their entire lives to try to get a science experiment up here so that they can further humanity and share the knowledge with the rest of the world. And we get to play a really small part in that. And that's my favorite part of being up here.
Hi, my name is Daly. I'm a 3rd grader, and I have a question for the NASA astronauts. How living in space changes the way you think about the Earth?
Yeah, living in space does change your perspective and the way you think about Earth. So when I was your age sitting in a classroom, the world felt so big. I only really knew about my school and my friends and my house. Maybe we'd drive around. I kind of knew about my city. And it just seemed so big when I heard about these other places and these other cities and these other countries. And I just couldn't believe it. And I just thought, how is little old me, just like you, Thalia, how does little old me going to have an impact on this planet? I'm too small. Well, when we're out here and we look back at the Earth, we realize actually what's small is the Earth. And there's a lot of humans on the Earth. And we have a really big impact on that planet. We have a big impact on the air that we breathe. We have an impact on climate change and on the oceans. And the humans have such a big impact. But you know what's really cool about that is that we're all in this together. So the other perspective that I kind of have changed a little bit is that the only way that we're going to solve really big problems on Earth is to work together. So my challenge to you guys is one of the most important things you can do is learn how to work together to solve problems.
My name is Anthony Rivera, and I'm the superintendent here in District 24. As your superintendent, and as someone who was once a student in New York City's public schools just like you, I can't tell you how proud I am to witness this incredible moment. Today, your voices are not just being heard, they're being broadcast into space. This is more than a question-answer session with astronauts. It's a symbol of how far your curiosity, your effort, and your imagination can take you. You represent the best of District 24, bright minds ready to lead, learn, and inspire others.
Great talking to you all. Have a great rest of your school day.
Station, this is Houston ACR. That concludes the event. Thank you.
Thank you to all participants. Station, we are now resuming operational audio comm.